Hey, thank you for watching/listening to another episode of whatever you're listening to. Paranoid American Podcast, Occult Disney, Paranoid Programming, Sound Science. There's a bunch of them, but whatever it is, I appreciate that you're listening/watching to this right now. And if you really want to support Paranoid American, if you didn't know this, in addition to being a podcast, we've actually been publishing comics since 2012, so over a decade. While I was still at Disney, I started this company to publish a little book called Time Samplers, and it's exploded into 60 different titles at this point. And the biggest one just launched, at least at the time of recording this, but it's at nasacomic.com, stands for Never a Straight Answer, and it's about Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landings. And I just want to show you some of the cool kind of exclusive things you can get by backing this thing early. So if you go to nasacomic.com, it'll automatically bring you to this Kickstarter page. And you can see, bam, hit our goal at the time of recording this, 100%. So it's definitely going to be made. So you'll absolutely get a copy of this thing if you back it. If you're listening to this in the future and this page isn't here or brought you somewhere else, then likely you can just buy it right now. So you have to skip all this and just buy the damn thing. But here's a couple little previews of artwork. Here's different variant covers that are for offered. This top left one, I actually have in print. I got a couple of prototypes printed up just to make sure that it would look good. It looks great, looks amazing, full color, gloss pages. It's got a nice hefty weight to it because it's 40 different pages of all unique art that you haven't seen before. There's also going to be a variant cover. There's going to be a hollow foil cover. And then there's a little postcard print that anybody that gets a physical copy of the comic in any form, they're going to end up getting this postcard size print here. Here's some different artwork samples from the 3 different artists that contributed to this book. And then here's the important part, the rewards. So by backing this project, you're going to get to pick some different kind of reward tier. The entry level one is this digital deluxe, which has the entire book in digital form. You'll get a PDF. It's also going to have an additional 8 different pages that aren't in any of the print versions just because they were maybe some were a little too spicy, maybe some were a slightly different art style, but I'm going to give all that in the digital deluxe along with some wallpapers and some MP3s and stuff. If you want the print one that I was just holding up here, then the entry for that one is $15. With that, you're going to get that little postcard print I mentioned. You're going to get a trading card. You're going to get a bookmark, and you'll probably get some other stuff because I always throw in extra freebies. You can ask anyone that's bought anything from Paranoid American. I hook it up with lots of extras. If you want the variant cover, which is only available in this campaign, there's a $19 tier for that. It also comes with an extra sticker. If you want the hollow foil, then that one is $29. These ones are going to be super limited. Like, these won't exist outside of this campaign for the next 30 days. So if you are listening to this in the future, sorry you missed out. You might be able to snag one in an upcoming campaign if there's extras. But if you really want this hollow foil, and you should, you can get it right now for $29. And then we've got a couple other tiers after that. We've got a 55th anniversary special for $55. That has the main cover and the foil cover and a sticker sheet and some other goodies. Here's the best value, basically. There's a $99 Cosmic Conspiracy tier, over 40% off of all the different things that are included. So this one's going to come with the main cover, the variant cover, the hollow foil cover, 3 or 4 different sticker sheets. It's going to come with 6+ stickers. It has the trading card, a bookmark. It has a custom Paranoid American Room 237 keychain. And I think the highlight of this is it's going to come with this custom embroidered Stanley Kubrick patch based on the Apollo 11 design. And if you keep scrolling down, you can see all the other extra reward tiers. All of the different items are going to be described in more detail. And I want to show you this patch right here. It's a 3-inch embroidered iron-on patch. You can put it on your Molex bag. You can put it on, anything, hats, backpacks. This is the first time we've ever done one of these custom patches, so I'm really excited about that. There's also a custom fake moon landing playset that you can select as an add-on when you go to check out. So speaking of, let's say that you're sold, you want to get a copy, you want to help support Paranoid American, you haven't used Kickstarter before, the easiest thing to do is you just click on this back this project button on the page. It's both at the very top of the screen and it's at the top of the page. So you can click either one, back this project. And from here, it's going to be like a typical checkout. You're going to select which of these different tiers you want. Again, I highly recommend this $99 Cosmic Conspiracy combo. It's going to have every single thing that the campaign has to offer that's exclusive to this NASA book. You click on that, you pick the country that you're in, and then you just click on the pledge button. There's one extra last step where it's going to ask you if you want to do any add-ons, if you want to throw in like a trading card pack or another keychain or anything else. You can get some huge discounts on the backlog of Paranoid American comics. But let's say you're done with that, you click continue, and then finally, if you don't already have a Kickstarter account, you'll be prompted to make one. You can link it to Facebook. The rest of the flow is just like any typical checkout online. So I really appreciate if you would take a look. Please just back the comic, back nasacomic.com. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Good evening, listeners, brave navigators of the enigmatic and the concealed. Have you ever felt the pull of the unanswered, the allure of the mysteries that shroud our existence? For more than a decade, a unique comic publisher has dared to dive into these mysteries, unafraid of the secrets they might uncover. This audacious entity is Paranoid American. Welcome to the mystifying universe of the Paranoid American Podcast.
Launched in the year 2012, Paranoid American has been on a mission to decipher the encrypted secrets of our world. From the unnerving enigma of MK-Ultra mind control to the clandestine assemblies of secret societies. From the awe-inspiring frontiers of forbidden technology to the arcane patterns of occult symbols in our very own pop culture. They have committed to unveiling the concealed realities that lie just beneath the surface. Join us as we navigate these intricate landscapes, decoding the hidden scripts of our society and challenging the accepted perceptions of reality.
Folks, I've got a big problem on my hands. There's a company called Paranoid American making all these funny memes and comics. Now, I'm a fair guy. I believe in free speech as long as it doesn't cross the line. And if these AI-generated memes dare to make fun of me, they're crossing the line.
This is your expedition into the realm of the extraordinary, the secret, the shrouded. Come with us as we sift through the world's grand mysteries, question the standardized narratives, and brave the cryptic labyrinth of the concealed truth. So strap yourselves in, broaden your horizons, and steel yourselves for a voyage into the enigmatic heart of the Paranoid American Podcast, where each story, every image, every revelation brings us one step closer to the elusive truth.
This is going to be a heavy hitter episode because we've got Charlie Robinson, who's a #1 bestseller of multiple books, Octopus of Global Control, HIPAA Crazy, Surviving in a World of Cultural Double Standards, Controlled Demolition of American Empire. He's been running a podcast for over 4 years now, I think, like every other day or multiple times a week, which is insane to have kept it up this whole entire time. He's also on Union of the Unwanted. You've seen him on Tinfoil Hat, Ripple Effect, OBDM, like all the podcasts. And rightfully so, you kind of have been dubbed as like your favorite podcaster's favorite podcaster. Is that a self-anointed title, or did that get bequeathed upon you?
I heard it from people at a Narcapulco, and I thought, that's funny. I like that. That actually, you know, that to me, I mean, it's sort of it's kind of like a haha joke, like your favorite podcaster's favorite podcast. But
I hear about like Tom Waits or something, like your favorite rocker's favorite rocker, right?
I would take that over anything. You know what I mean? To have like the other podcast people that I know and like have them listen or like it or respect it or you know, I'm not saying listen every single time, every single episode, but you know, from time to time, break it out and listen to it. That to me, that's winning. I'm never gonna these topics that I'm never gonna have. I'm never gonna have a huge, massive, gigantic audience like Rogan or anything like that. You can't when you talk about these things. But if, and of course, you measuring any sort of whatever in this industry is ridiculous. But if I could say that there would be one thing I would like. Yeah, it'd be nice. It's nice to have other podcast people that I listen to and that I like listen to my stuff. Yeah, I'll take that. That'll work.
Can we get meta for a second? Can I ask you what your favorite podcast is so we can figure out who my favorite podcaster's favorite podcast is?
It's OBDM. It's always been OBDM. It's
Shout out OBDM.
Our Big Dumb Mouth, Midnight Mike, my partner on Union of the Unwanted, does a show that everybody needs to check out called Our Big Dumb Mouth, and it goes by the acronym OBDM. It's just funny. It's wacky. It's conspiratorial. They have Alex Jones clips of the week every Wednesday. That's funny, where they run a just like a super cut of him saying ridiculous things each day for the hours that he's on air. So, OBDM works for me. I listen to that all the time. Tony Merkel, my partner on Macro-Aggressions, runs a show called The Confessionals, which everybody knows. And of course, that's a well-loved podcast. I'm lucky, though. I'm surrounded for the Union of the Unwanted. I've got Sam Tripoli with Tinfoil Hat, which I've been listening to for years, well before I knew him. Ricky Varandas from the Ripple Effect podcast, who's been doing it for you think I've been doing my show for a while. I think he's been doing his for, I want to say he and Mike both have been doing theirs for well over 10 years.
Oh.
Mike and OBDM has crossed over into the 2000 episodes shows, and they only do 2 a week. Greg Carlwood from the Higher Side Chats as well. So yeah, I'm into the podcasts that are a little bit wacky, kind of, funny every now and then. If there's a good, like when I like Greg for his interviewing, cause he always really prepares well for his guests. So he'll read their books and know everything inside and out. I always think that's crazy. I mean, I think it's great of him, but I know how many people I've had on my show, and I know how many books they've written. I couldn't read them all. I mean, I just couldn't do it. And I've tried. I've read a lot of their books, but and of course, since we're talking about favorite shows and favorite stuff like that, quite frankly, is one of my favorite shows as well, with Frank Valbero. He's been doing Quite Frankly for a long, long time. He has me on. I just wrapped up with him on Monday for the month of June. Every Monday for the month of June, we were doing a book club. I was part of his book club. He does a book club every month for his premium subscribers, and we sort of pick a book. Well, we did it last summer with Shoeless Joe, the book that wound up inspiring Field of Dreams, the movie. And this year, Frank picked Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury, which was about a summer in 1928. And I had no idea what it was going to be. And we would read a little bit. So that is a treat for me because, again, kind of like OBDM and kind of like Tinfoil Hat and other things, I was listening to them before I knew them. I was watching Frank's shows and before I knew him, before I was writing books or anything. So it's a trip for me because I went from just being in the audience to now on the show sometimes. And I try to play it cool, but when I've been a guest host on OBDM a few times, it's the highlight of my week. You know what I mean? The sad part is I go, oh, I just got done recording the show. I'm a little bit bummed that I don't now have the opportunity to go and watch a brand new OBDM episode because I was just on it. So there's a little bit of a letdown because I don't get to watch a new one, but I was a part of it. I don't know. It's weird. But as a viewer, as a fan of the show, I like that. And with Macro-Aggressions, I mean, when Tony and I were talking about that back in, you know what? I can tell you that Tony and I were talking about it in around Christmas time of 2019 about doing Macro-Aggressions, and we decided that I would do it, and we were working out sort of the details of what that was going to be. And I remember having the schedule, having a phone call with Tony to talk about the details of how this Macro-Aggression show was going to look like. And when he called me, he goes, "Oh my God, Kobe Bryant just died in a helicopter crash. So I now bookmark, I now know like where I was, like where the Macroaggressions show started off from a conversation that happened right then. So now when I look back on it, I see that. And we've, now I'm 450 episodes in as of today. The 450th episode went out and we just crossed over 8 million downloads.
That's insane.
And I, of course, yeah, it's totally insane. I mean, I was, this is embarrassing, but it's 100% honest to God truth. I'm not making this up at all, even though it sounds like I'm trying to be funny and trying to make this up. But when I started, the first microphone I had was a USB plug-in little microphone that was on a stand and everything. For the first at least 20 episodes of Macroaggressions, I was talking into the back end of the microphone. I swear to God, I was. So like, I've learned a lot over the years. You know what I mean? I was never very great with technology. I wasn't that bad, but apparently I was. And I had to finally look at it and it was like, I am literally talking into the back end of this stuff. So it's like, you come, we have no broadcasting. Did you go to broadcasting school? Because I didn't. And,
I actually did go to a few classes because I went to like an art school and we learned about video process and all that. But
okay,
I remember any of it.
Well, I had no idea I was going to be doing any of this stuff, writing books or doing podcasts or any of it. It's been quite a pivot midlife out of real estate. I'm still involved in it. I may still do a little real estate, but what's funny is that when I look back on all of this, part of it had to do with this old career that I had in real estate. And I remember taking this job with a developer that had this like mid-rise condo project. It was like 3/4 built out and they were going to have to finish the last part of it. And I was going to be the on-site sales guy. Well, that's great and all, but when it's under construction, nobody really wants to come by and see this until it's actually done. And so I had periods of I had 5 days a week where I had to be there for like 9 hours at this office on site, but nobody was coming. So I was reading books and watching videos and going down the rabbit hole at work.
On the clock. That's the best
on
place.
The clock, which is
well. I hope anyone that's listening now is at work and getting paid for it. That's the best.
Well, if you're at work listening now and you're getting paid for it, then you're doing better than I was because I was also 100% commission, which it sucks, because when you're like nobody's coming in the door, I'm not making any money. Well, at least I'm going to get myself red pilled in the process. So that was part of my journey was reading, having time to read and having time to watch videos and getting exposed to all of these other different people. So when I look back on all of this and I look back on like you gave me like a great introduction, like author and podcast and everything, zero chance I was going to do any of this just back in, in 2010 when I was sitting in that office, 2010 and 2011, when I was sitting in that office for quite a bit of time, like nothing, not a whole lot going on down there. In reading a book like Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins, or reading the books that David Icke put out, and then flashing forward to present day, and having those guys on my podcast, you have no idea how like internally I'm just like bubbling. I'm so giddy. But on the surface, I'm like, oh, play it cool so David Icke doesn't think you're a fanboy. But I'm like, like on the inside.
I'm there with you. He's kind of like David Icke's like my Taylor Swift in a way.
So me too. He's on my Mount Rushmore. And I'll tell you, I had a moment in February of this year. I mean, you want to talk about like blow your mind moment. I was on the stage in Mexico at an Acapulco. So in Acapulco, day one. First, so day one of the event, I'm hosting and emceeing the week-long event, which is, again, like an out-of-body experience. It's a lot of fun, but also like, I can't believe I'm doing this. the first speaker on the first day is David Icke, but he's not physically there. And we knew he wasn't going to be able to physically get there. He's back home. But what I'm doing is I'm doing an interview with David Icke. I'm on the stage. He's behind me. There's a full like LCD, like beautiful screen behind me. And he's on that. And I'm in front of a live audience with there's not a seat in the house. There's hundreds of people, maybe even 1,000 people out there. And they've got cameras, and then they've got a 360 camera that's spinning around and showing the crowd. So I don't know what David could see, but I think he could see me, and I think he could see the crowd as well. But to interview David Icke from the stage in Acapulco, and then we're taking questions. We had questions from the crowd that they had written out. So having that interaction and everything, I remember I was about halfway through that, and I was standing on the stage, and I was like, "Don't pass out. Make sure you breathe, and
make sure your knees are bent.
Make sure your knees are bent. Exactly, and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, enjoy the fact that this is such a crazy trip. That like you went from sitting in that office reading David Icke books to now you're standing on the stage and you're interviewing him in front of all these anarchists. And it's like, I look back and I think whatever it is out there that whoever's listening to this, whatever you're doing, if you're not where you think you want to be, or you're not doing what you think you want to do, or that can change. You can put yourself on that path. If circumstance, if you make that decision. And I remember the first book I wrote the octopus book. I wrote it in total secrecy. I did not tell anybody that I wrote it. I was afraid I wasn't going to finish it at first. And then like halfway through, I was afraid I wasn't going to, I was afraid someone was going to tell me to stop. Really, I was afraid my wife was going to be like, "What are you doing? This is like crazy." Like, are you writing a manifesto? No, no, I'm not writing a manifesto. I was writing a manifesto.
By candlelight.
By candlelight. No. Honest to God, there were moments where I was sneaking out of bed, going into the office, and I was like, I have to just write. I just have to write this, and this, because otherwise I'll forget it. And I was like, and next thing you know, it's like 3:00 in the morning. And I was like, oh, I got to get back in. You know what I mean? So like I was sneaking around. When I finally came out to my wife that I was writing a book, she threw me out of the house for 2 days for emotionally cheating on her.
It's the meme of like, he must be cheating on me. And it's just Charlie just thinking about,
it's me.
Oh my God,
I'm thinking about the octopus. It was totally it. She was like, get out. But I'm like, I go, like when you go complain to the girls about how your husband is so shitty to you, how he's sneaking around and like how you had to throw him out of the house, and they go, for what? Was he cheating on you? And then you have to explain that you threw him out of the house because you wrote a book. Like, just understand you're not going to get much sympathy. She's like, I know, but you gotta go.
If we could rewind before the books and 430 episodes ago, when you were still, talking into the microphone backwards, aside from telling yourself to turn the damn microphone around, Charlie, like what would be something that you would tell yourself now at number 4, Charlie at 450, talking to Charlie at 20?
Well, now I'll tell you what, now I know that people are listening, which is maybe, I guess, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But now you have to be careful of your words. Of course, I'm pretty reckless with my words. I've called every politician in Washington, D.C. a pedophile or a cocksucker or something. You know what I mean? Like, I've called them every name in the book. I mean, there's really nothing more I can say. I would say, like, what I would tell myself from when I started the podcast thing is it's a marathon, not a sprint. Keep grinding away. Keep talking about the things that you think are important. Keep having, I like having my friends on, like I like having guests on that are people that I know, but I also have this really great opportunity where I get to reach out to people that I don't know. And I, out of the blue, really too, and just say, hey, can I talk to you? Which is something I would never do if I was like out at a mall or at a restaurant or at a bar or something. I would never go up and do that. But since I have the protection of a podcast, like sort of like the logic and reasoning behind it, I just want to talk to you on my podcast, right? But like the truth is, when you read a book by John Perkins, and then after a while I go, yeah, maybe I should just see if I could get him on my podcast, right? Like I love his book. Like maybe I should just try. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? He says no. Well, he didn't say anything for a while. I never got a hold of him for like a year. And I tried several times, and then I said, well, I'll give him one more shot. And I emailed him and yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll come on. I was like, oh my God. So I've learned that this is it gives you the justification to reach out and say that you want to talk to someone without it being overly weird. You know what I mean? You kind of have a reason to do it. So for me, this has been the nice thing about the podcast is that it's built. I mean, I can write the books and I don't need any sort of help from anybody else for that stuff. But with the podcast, I can now reach out to people and I would say that 80% of the people that I reach out to that I really want never even respond. You know what I mean? Like, and I've been in sales my whole life, so I don't get too worried about that. I just assume that maybe they didn't see it. You have to have that salesman mentality, right? Oh, they just didn't see it. They didn't laugh at me behind my back. They just didn't see it, right? Oh, I'll give them another crack at it. That hopefulness that you get. And every now and then, I've just had the most interesting people come on and talk to me about their specialty. And that's been cool. And so with macroaggressions, it's kind of broken up into two different types, right? There's 2 episodes a week. One is an interview, one's a monologue. So like the monologue is kind of like writing a chapter in a book in a sense that you pick a topic and drill down on it for like an hour, as opposed to the interviews, which is you pick a person and drill down on whatever they want to talk about for an hour. So I've been able to do a little of both. And I'll tell you what, one of the nice things is about the podcast, as opposed to like the book writing, is that the book writing is a long process. If you've got something to say in between 2 years, you might not say it. You know what I mean? It's like, it comes out at the, it's like everything that you've been thinking for the last 2 or 3 years is condensed into this one book, and then it goes out. And then if you want to say something else, you better start writing, and it's going to take another couple years before you get that thing out. With the podcasting, it's weekly, twice a week, so in that regard, it's nice because I can make things current. Whereas the books, by the time you put them out, I mean, I'm talking about historical stuff. So it's not like it's not like it goes bad or expires or anything like that. But you don't get the opportunity to talk about current events in books, because by the time the book is out, it's not current anymore. So that's the nice thing about the podcasting that I've found, is that you can strong arm people into coming in and talking to you, which is nice, and guilt them into it, which works as well. Or you can just pick a topic that you're interested in and get to the bottom of it and do an episode on that. So
what's a good way to guilt someone into coming in?
I mean, I think I'm going to throw myself off this building if you don't come on my show and talk to me about your new book. No, I wouldn't guilt anyone into it, but like I have pestered some people into it. I am not above that.
Do you have a white whale?
It was John Perkins, really.
Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Yeah.
It was John Perkins. So again, I have to get credit where credit is due, and also just sort of sort of in retrospect, like where things have gone. In March of 2007, I was living in Las Vegas and I was working in real estate, and it was booming, right? It was just crazy. Hottest market, second hottest market in the world behind Dubai. And I was working for one of the biggest builders in town, and we were fucking printing money, right? We were just selling houses. People were camping out in our parking lot in order to get into a lottery to buy a house. I mean, the whole thing was unsustainable and weird. But I made time to go on a trip because I was burning out. And so I planned a trip to Thailand for a week to go scuba diving. And right before I left, my buddy, who's my college, like my best friend, gave me a book, and he said, "You should read this. It's right up your alley. Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins." And I remember being underwater scuba diving and thinking to myself, looking at my gauges and saying, all right, well, it's time to go up. We're almost out of air. But at least the good thing is I get to read another chapter of the book. I remember thinking that. And sitting out there in the sun and reading this book about how debt is used as a weapon, and how the IMF and the World Bank are these groups that John Perkins wasn't writing about this as like, he was writing about it from personal experience, being an economic hitman and what they did and how he got recruited and what they used, and this explanation of debt as a weapon and how they were loaning money to countries that would fall behind in their payments and then extract, then repo something in return, like privatize their lumber industry and sell it off to their buddies at Goldman Sachs, or vote their way in a UN resolution, or put a U.S. military base in Ecuador, or whatever the things that he was explaining. I'm having this epiphany, like debt as a weapon, right? Oh my God, we in Las Vegas are giving loans to people that have no business with these loans. They're going to fall behind on their payments, and the banks are going to take back their houses. I was just like, oh my God, I'm in it. And I didn't even realize I was in it. Right. So I had that moment. That book changed my life. That book sent me on a new trajectory. So he was always my Moby Dick. Of course, I wanted to get John Perkins on, and I did, and then I had him on again. And so from that moment there to the last time I talked to him, which was a couple months ago, he's saying, "You should come to the Amazon with me." And I'm going, okay, yes, I should.
How do you say no to that?
I don't know. I was like, my finances, could I afford to go to the Amazon? I was like, again,
can you afford not to?
If John Perkins is inviting you to go to the Amazon, I think you kind of have to go. So I'm like, all right, I'll figure it. So I'm in the process of trying to figure that out.
Usually when one of those questions come up and you're like, man, can I afford it? Or is this rational? I always think like, I'm on my deathbed. Am I regretting saying yes or no to this?
You got it. That's exactly my rationale too, which is why I will probably find myself down there at some point. And to be clear, it's not like he and I are like best friends or anything like that, but he does small little groups with people, and he takes them through, and he says, and he explains to them, they go like way up into the middle of nowhere, and he meets with he's got these relationships with tribes people there and professors, and there's an educational part where you go through the libraries and you go through the museums and everything. I was like, I'm into all of that. Like, that would be amazing.
Is this where you go to get sheep dipped?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Perkins, I think Perkins had an epiphany too, like he was an environmentalist who thought he was doing environmental type stuff. And then he realized towards the tail end that he wasn't, that he was actually working for the empire. And then the problem was that he didn't leave right away. The problem that he had with it was that he didn't leave right away. Once he realized he was in it, he should have left, but he didn't. He stayed for another decade and participated in that. And then left and had the guilt, wrote the book, and then felt like I need to get back to my environmentalist type path. So now he's going kind of back to where he was, which is like grabbing people and saying, let me show you this beautiful jungle. Let me show you what we've done. So he's like an eco guy, but like a legit one. He's not like I don't think he's a climate change grifter. He's an environmentalist that like actually cares about the environment, not like a carbon.
Well, how many polar bears has he personally saved?
Well, I don't know. I mean, not enough. That's for
the
sure.
metric. That's the metric as far as I know. That's what Al Gore says.
Not enough those skinny polar bears out there. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention one of my favorite practical examples of what you were talking about debt being used as a weapon. Because I remember reading The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is very dense. It's kind of like if you were to read the Confessions of an Economic Hitman. That's almost the Mission Impossible page turner version of The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is like the textbook, like rote memorization, names and dates thing. But it finally clicked because I was reading this article in like the mid 2000s, and it was talking about how Venezuelan state officials were not allowed to board certain planes because Venezuela owed so much debt to the US and other countries that at any point, if that Venezuelan airline landed somewhere where they owed debt, they could, in theory, repossess like that plane and everyone on it, and now all of a sudden they've got state officials that are stuck. And it was such a weird concept, and I just remember like, oh, that's what they were talking about. This is that thing where it's like they get into a debt and they realize that there's like a political cap. It's not just about repossessing your house and taking your stuff, and it's not just about getting your natural resources. Like, oh, you know what, give us some of that fresh water, let us put Nestle in there and we'll kind of scratch off some of this debt. It was really like a fear of you can't even go into certain areas and you can't utilize certain services because it's almost like jailhouse rules. Like you don't want to be beholden to, somebody else in the jailhouse because now you're going to owe way more than whenever you borrowed in the first place.
Oh, it's so devious. And Ed wrote that Creature from Jekyll Island book too. Yeah, that's on the Mount Rushmore of conspiracy books, right? I mean, it sort of gave up the game as far as the way central banking works, and you take that and you go, oh God, banking is so boring. Oh, who would ever care about this, right? And you say it's dense, and yeah, I mean, it's like you're talking about banking from 100 years ago. What could be more boring than that, right? But it's so important to how, to how things work, and understanding that is essential. Right. If you don't understand the banking, when I wrote the octopus book, people were like, well, like there's 8 tentacles, like like the military is the most dangerous, I'm assuming, right? And I said, oh, no, I think the banking is the most dangerous. I think the banking is it's the most boring. It sort of operates in the shadows where you're not really paying attention to it. But nobody has been enslaved more than the countries that have done deals with the IMF and the World Bank. It's not about money for those banks. They're not in the business of making money. They don't give a shit about making money with their bank. They're using their bank to entrap you. They're using your bank for political purposes. And that changed the game for me, because in my mind, it was always like, well, clearly they're just trying to make a profit. It's like, well, when you control the printing press itself, money has no value to you. It's what you can get with that money. It's how much you can get with that money before everybody figures out the scam that you have a magic printing machine. And when you have a magic printing machine, you always abuse it. They always abuse it. They restrain themselves for as long as they can, but at some point they always abuse it. And fiat currency goes to zero over a long enough timeline. It always does, every single time. And the US dollar is no different. So that was the last part of this sort of puzzle that I got into or interested in, was the banking, because it was sort of hidden by the fact that it's kind of boring. But then once you get into it, you realize it's the blood that flows through this, right? It's critical, because if you've got access to the money, then you can make all kinds of things happen. That's why, I've heard people say that Bitcoin is anti-war because it's such a limited supply, right? You can't inflate it infinitely like you can the dollar. And when you can do that with the dollar, you wind up using it to create war machines and things like that. So, again, the banking, it gets weaponized at the tail end. It gets turned into actual, the military tentacle of the octopus only is there because of the banking. They kind of go hand in hand. So kudos to Ed. Have you been to Red Pill Expo before? Have you gone to any of them?
I haven't taken any pills yet. No, I've been to Jekyll Island a few times, but I haven't been to any. I don't think I've been to any conspiracy conventions in particular yet. I've got my heart set on Cryptid Con, I think, which is in Kentucky, which I might try and get to next year. But no, is there any other conspiracy or like pill conventions that you recommend?
No, I mean, there's. No, not conspiracy related. I don't think. I mean, Anarchapulco is like
as a very like encompassing term.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I mean, I was at the Alternative Media Awards. Was that what it was? In Austin last summer, and that was kind of like it wasn't really a convention, but it was sort of like that. It's like where you had all those guys in one room. That was kind of fun. But as far as like, I need to go to a Red Pill. I know they just had it in South Dakota. I missed it. I still haven't gone. I've met Ed, but I've never gone to one of his conferences. But that's the nice thing about being at Anarchapulco is that I met a lot of people that were putting on other live events. I met Carla, who does Pork Fest, and I met Alex Zeck, who does something called Confluence in Texas, and Mike Winter, who does a Music and Sky music festival. So it is kind of nice to get out and meet these people, or in the case of Anarchapulco, I just happened to meet 4 or 3 other people that were doing live events. But just the idea of live events, you mentioned going to Kentucky, I like it. I think it's a good thing. I think it's great for people to get out there and interact with one another and meet other people and realize, okay, I'm not the only lunatic out there. I mean, I like this stuff and other people like this stuff too. That's good to know.
Yeah, extremists need to congregate. That's the whole point of being
careful, right? Like, don't walk into traps, of course. If some girl like is all of a sudden like unusually interested in you.
She wants you to shave down a shotgun by 3/4 of an inch.
Right, exactly. You're like, maybe not. Maybe stay away from that. But yeah, I like the idea of people getting together and having and selling books or swapping books or I mean, I've enjoyed my time speaking at Anarchapulco in part because as soon as I get done, I get to go sit in the audience and watch everybody else for the next couple of days. You know what I mean? And learn about topics that maybe I wasn't super interested in. Every day at Anarchapulco is something different. So it's like day 1 is like anarchy, fuck the government day. Day 2 is like health and wellness, spiritual type. Day 3 is sovereign skills. Like, these people are, you got guys out there teaching you how to weld and do all kinds of interesting things. Homesteaders are there. All the garden people are there. So it's like, and then one day is like ancient history where they're teaching, they're talking, guys are presenting on like star forts and Tartaria and ancient redwood trees. I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm totally mind blown. So like, I love it. I love all that stuff. I don't pretend to know anything about it really, but like I'm in favor of the conferences and I'm in favor of Anarchapulco in particular because you get a little variety. There's a little bit of something for everybody. And there's also, with regard to Anarchapulco, which is for those that don't know, the largest anarchist conference in the world in Acapulco, Mexico. It's been, this was the 10th year of it, the anniversary of it. So it happens every February, and it goes on for a week or 5 days. And it's just amazing. There's people from all over the world. You will definitely leave feeling like renewed, like, okay, like we're going to be good. We're going to be fine as a species. We're good. We got smart people working on it. I met some interesting folks from Europe they're good. You feel a little bit inspired because you're meeting smart people that are like building outside of the system. They're like, system's broken. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to build something different. So you'll meet those. You'll meet all the crypto people. One day is all crypto. So it's like you'll meet all the developers and meet the guys that built the wallets that you use, and they're all there. And billionaires now. They weren't billionaires when you first met them. They are now. And you go, whoa, this is interesting, so get out there and interact and meet people. And I always like, you just go get into an adventure, right? You don't know who you're going to meet or what you're going to learn or what's going to happen. But every single time I've gone, and I've gone 3 times as a speaker and once as the host, I come out of there with a bunch of contacts or people that I would have never met, and interests in new little tangents that I might not have ever heard of. And I definitely learned a hell of a lot about crypto from hanging out with those guys over the years. I don't know enough, but I know, I just listen to them. So, I like the idea of all these little interests joining up, because you haven't lived until you've gone out drinking all night long with a guy who can talk to you for 3 hours about star forts. That's wild to me, man.
Shoot me. No, I'm curious, because you were mentioning millions of listeners and billions of dollars, and we're talking about, in my opinion, podcasting kind of rivaling mainstream media. It's almost like the new generation's version of popping on CNN or Fox and just having it go on for a day and getting sort of takes. But it also means that it's almost rife to be infiltrated by whatever your favorite alphabet agency.
Yes.
Like you can't convince me otherwise. So let me just state as a fact in my own head that there is a podcast Illuminati. Like there has to be one. What kind of is there any sort of like, it's weird to reference it as like a community, but like the podcast anti-government community, if there were one, are there any safeguards in place to prevent, like the CIA from making their guy be the Joe Rogan or fill in the blank?
Probably not.
So is it just a forever cycle that like a new
probably
group infiltrated and...
Well, there's been a lot of talk lately about, David has been talking about this quite a bit, the mainstream alternative media. It's sort of like the name that they've given for like it's
like an alt-right.
Yeah. Well, it's Tucker, it's the Tim Pool, it's Daily Wire, it's guys like that. You know what I mean? It's this, we're not on your TV. We don't work for NBC or CNN or the Washington Post or any of that. We're not the mainstream media. We're the alternative media. We're not that. We're something else. Well, we have always been the alternative media. And so what David Icke and some of the people kind of around him have been saying is like, this feels very much like the mainstream version of the alternative media. And that, of course, is something that I don't think we can control. And you definitely need to be aware of it, because it's on the one hand we are being suppressed. It's a pain in the ass that they put those little limiters on our social media accounts, and I can't be on YouTube. My videos they just get I'm on like the pay no mind list. Like as soon as my stuff goes up, it just gets thrown off. So there's no point in doing that. So that whole massive marketplace with the number 2 search engine in the world, the YouTube search, that's not even available to us. So that's massively limiting the playing field. And it's a problem, right? So it's frustrating when you see part of what gives it away that maybe these guys aren't the guys that are as pure as you would like them to be is simply due to the fact, and I know people will say, oh, you're just being jealous. It's just simply due to the fact that they have massive audiences, because it means that they are allowed to have massive audiences. We are not allowed to have mass. I'm not saying that we would, but we're not even given the opportunity to possibly have. Now, they've done a lot of work. Tim Pool's been known for a long time. I'm not saying he's a bad guy or anything like that. I'm just saying that they dance around it. They know what topics they won't talk about on YouTube. They know what'll get them zapped. We, the authentic alternative media, we will talk about Sandy Hook. We don't care. we don't care. We want to talk about that. We'll talk about all the stuff you're not supposed to talk about. So we're, it's going to always have, I think it's going to be something that the audience needs to be aware of, right? Like, who are you getting your information from? And again, it doesn't have to be, when you're talking about poisoning the well, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be that everything that person says is nonsense. It just has to be one fact that they intentionally get wrong on purpose, and the whole, everything that matters. So you can compromise these guys relatively easy. You can feed them bad info. You can make them dependent on their advertisers. That's a good one right there. You can get them to the point where they're dependent on the money, build up a staff, and then have to play ball because they have a staff to support. Something to be said for being a one-man show, right? You don't have to worry about that stuff. So I think it's, but there is also part of me that is like, look, if the general public is at least getting 80% of this information, that's good, right? That's better than getting none of it. So I'm glad they are getting some of the information about these topics, even though they're not going as far as I would want them to go, or they're not going into the level of detail that I would like this mainstream alternative media to get into, or covering the topic. Like, at least they're talking about it, and the audience is aware of some of it. It feels like it's a step closer to them getting to us. Like, but not everybody's ready for our stuff. Let's just be honest. We're talking about things that the average person is like, you guys might need to be institutionalized for having these thoughts. So I don't expect to have a big audience. You know what I mean? That's why I'm saying that, like, when we hit 8 million downloads on Macro-Aggressions, it is a legitimate mystery to me.
If there was someone out there that's never heard any of the Macro-Aggressions, and you wanted to like sell them on it, is there a specific episode you'd say, listen to this one?
This is what I will say. Listen to the intro. It's a 2-minute intro. Listen to the intro. At the end of the intro, you'll know if you're interested in what I'm serving up or not. You'll know. I will say this. There is one episode that I did that was so hardcore that I wrote it out. It's the only time I've ever done this. I wrote it out, and then I called Tony Merkel, who is my partner on Macro-Aggressions, but like, he's in the background. He doesn't have any sort of input in content or anything like that. He does, like the engineering and all of that stuff. But I value his opinion, and he knows how to run a podcast and make it sound great and everything. He taught me some really good habits. But also, when it comes to just like, I need to run something by another person, he's my person to do that with. And I said, I've written down an episode that I think I might want to do it, but I don't know, it might be too heavy. And I wanted to get your feedback on it. And he says, well, why don't you do this? He says, okay, so you wrote it out. He goes, why don't you record it? Just do it like you're doing it normal. And then I'll listen to it. And then after that, then I'll call you and then we'll just figure it out. I was like, okay, that's a good idea. So then I recorded it like normal and sent it over to him. And he called me like 2 hours later and he was like, you have to put this episode out. And that episode is called Where Did All the People Go? And that is the most downloaded episode of Macro-Aggressions. That one went crazy viral, where I was getting weird media requests from places all over the planet wanting to talk about what I'd found in this. And it had to do with the international CDC's numbers on... I didn't even know. I honestly didn't even know there was an international CDC. I just thought there was a CDC, and then I thought there's the World Health Organization, but there's an International Centers for Disease Control, and they had these numbers and on vaccinations, 1 dose, 2 dose, first booster, second booster, broken down by demographics and broken down by country. And I went through all their data one night in a out of body experience, as one does, right? And I was like, I was looking at it, and this is the benefit of being a writer, I will say, because when you're writing a book for over the course of 2 years, you're just like surrounded in this information, and you read it, and then you delete it, and then you rewrite it, and then you go back, and then you look at this source material, whatever. Things get stuck in your head, whether you want them to or not. And I'm going through this international CDC list of all these countries, and I start to notice something that I remembered from the Deagle report. And I went back because I remember in the Deagle report, which showed it was a report that came out in 2014 showing populations of the world in 2015 and then populations of the world in 2025, and showing that in some of these countries, there was as big as a 73% drop in population. And I remember because I've written about Deagle and have knowledge of them. So I'm looking at the CDC report and remembering that on the Deagle report, some of the countries went up in population. Not many, but there are a few, just a few that went up, like 10 of them, right? Like just and I go, I look at the vaccination stats for who is the most heavily vaccinated and who is the least vaccinated. And the 9 countries that are the least vaccinated on the CDC report are the 9 countries on the Deagle report whose population is going up. And I went, oh shit, I think I might have found something here. And that really freaked me out, because we know about eugenics. And
they're actually a sponsor of this show. I just wanted to throw that out there before you go too far into this topic. We are sponsored by Eugenics.
Not Nutrigenics. This concept of like depopulation runs in the background of a lot of these policies and a lot of things that are going on. And dude, that episode freaked. So when I recorded that and I had all of these notes for it and did that whole thing and sent it over to Tony, he said, you have to put that out. And I'm glad I did. And so you asked, like, is there an episode that people should check out? That's the one that freaked everybody out the most, myself included. And it's from about 2 years ago. I think it was like 2022, sometime around there. Check it out if you want to get weird with Deagle and depopulation and vaccinations and all that good stuff.
It's definitely not the lightest topic, but I do think that eugenics is one of the most important topics you can look into, and one of the biggest reasons is because from my own research, I don't know how factual this is, but in my monkey brain, this is one of those facts that has just like stood in my brain. It really does seem that the US, they kind of had this privatized version of eugenics. It was very much like a capitalistic, incentivized, you can get money, you can get tax breaks. Like there was reasons that you would voluntarily opt in to be part of one of these eugenics programs, or maybe you were arrested or you were deemed too stupid or your IQ wasn't high enough, all these different reasons, but it was kind of done in like a private sector sort of way. And then Germany got their hands on it and he was like, I love this. We're going to just turn this into like the state-run operation, and we're just going to make it mandatory at the state level. And that sort of, everyone was like, oh my God, that's not the way to do this. And once Germany fell, quote unquote, in World War II, it was almost like, okay, thank God that eugenics stuff is all over. But really, I think it just showed all the key players. They were like, okay, the world's not ready for this to happen in public. It just needs to happen behind the scenes.
Well, you're right. Your little monkey brain is correct. And the reason why I know this is because I'm writing a book on it. So the Nazis' eugenics program was taken from California. So they quote it. Ernst Rudin, the head of the Nazis' eugenics sterilization program, and Margaret Sanger's best friend who started Planned Parenthood. Ernst Rudin said that the Nazis used the legal justification of the California case and an Illinois case for the sterilization of the unfit that the United States case law showed. They used that as the justification to sell it to the German public. So everyone wants to, I'm not, Hitler is whatever he was, right? But when you take a look at his speeches on racial purity, they're taken straight from some of the American eugenicist thinkers of the time,
which still persists today very strongly, just way more underground. But like the Huxley Foundation and like the entire Huxley family, Alexander Graham Bell, Henry Ford, like all of those original American pioneer heroes were all very much pro eugenics. And I feel like a lot of people still are today, even in higher levels. But if you were to even say that word out loud in any kind of context, you immediately get villainized. So they don't say it out loud for that reason, but it doesn't seem like it's ever gone anywhere. It feels like, if anything, eugenics has ramped up through maybe your global financial control, where now they can put the squeeze on in one area financially, and instead of being like sterilized, it's just like, oh, we're not going to have kids now because we can't afford kids, which is sort of like a proxy sort of sterilization in a way.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Huxleys. I have a macroaggression episode called The Unnatural Selection of the Huxley Family.
Everyone likes to talk about Aldous. No one talks about Julian, and he's kind of the brains of the operation in some ways.
You're damn right he is. And he was the head of the British Eugenics Society. And they had, after World War II, there was a problem with, the whole eugenics thing. It got kind of a bad name with the goose stepping and whatnot, right? So he decided that they needed to rebrand. And so they changed the name of the British Eugenics Society to the Galton Institute, right? As a nod to Sir Francis Galton. But he also changed the term eugenics. He said it's too associated with all the negativity of the Third Reich and all of that. We need to rebrand it into something that is a little bit more becoming of the future of humanity. And the name he chose to change eugenics into is transhumanism. And that
which folds directly into the Macy conferences and cybernetics and all this concept. That was like the first big push outside of the umbrella of eugenics, I guess still under the umbrella, but by a different name now, right?
They made a conscious decision to pivot away from racial reasoning to scientific reasoning. It's still about race, but it sounds better when it's about science. And they focused on that. We all know what it really means. It means thinning the herd of all the undesirables. And if you listen to what Klaus Schwab is talking about with the World Economic Forum, they talk about the fourth industrial revolution. What is that? They say the fourth industrial revolution is transhumanism, the blending of man with machine. Now, when you know that Julian Huxley changed eugenics into transhumanism, then what you understand when you read between the lines is that what Klaus Schwab is talking about, the fourth industrial revolution, is eugenics. He's telling you what they're doing. But people misconstrue that and they think you're going to get an artificial leg when you get your leg blown off in a landmine. And that's true, but that's not what the transhumanism stuff is all about. The transhumanism goes even deeper than that. It goes into putting chips into your brain, as we've gone through, and also talks about making you less human, making you one version less human because you have artificial substances in your body. Now, what does that do to you from a legal standpoint?
Well, if we
You're a genetically modified person.
If we slowly approach the concept of transhumanism, again, like my own monkey brain, the way that it thinks of it, it's not necessarily like transhumanism is here the day you go into the office and they put the neural link in your brain and it's only that connection. I almost think it's like the first time that you get a cell phone and you put somebody's phone number in the phone and you make an unconscious decision in a way to not memorize it because you've got it in this long-term memory that'll be in your pocket. I don't really see the real delineation between that and a neural link. The only real difference is distance. It's just like the millimeters away. Like if your phone is a few feet away in your pocket from your brain, what if you put your phone right up next to your head? Okay, now what if you connect it with a little wire? Like it's all sort of the same trajectory, right?
Slippery slope. It sure is.
Which is a logical fallacy, but sometimes it's correct, right?
Well, I mean, there's amazing benefits to this technology, and also, I mean, there's a trade-off too.
Are you a never neural? I just made that term.
I am. Yes, I'm a pure blood. I'm not injecting anything. There's no brain chips. I'm good. Call me old fashioned. I like my brain the way it is.
What about exoskeleton suit? Would you don one of those?
I might have to put one of those on to go fight the New World Order with Alex Jones.
So is the line, if you had to draw a line in the sand, would it just be some sort of an invasive surgery would be the cutoff for you?
You know what? I don't know. I mean, it sort of like opens up a whole new line of questioning about like, well, what's already in us? Smart dust?
I mean,
you start reading about this DARPA and you go, oh.
If they can put microplastics in your balls, they can sneeze a nanobot into your brain, right?
If they can put mRNA technology in a vaccine and microplastics in your balls, then they can put smart dust in your lungs and control your brains, like one of those parasites that like takes over the bug and makes it go wherever it wants it to go. I mean, at some point you just have to throw your hands up and say, I am going to enjoy today. I am going to just not make myself crazy, and I'm going to enjoy today.
Yeah, I do loathe the future where like one of these questions will just be, do you want the strawberry vaccine or the root beer vaccine? Kind of like when you go to get like, like
don't even get these lunatics any ideas.
So one of the big things that's coming up is the election. In fact, I think the debates are tonight or tomorrow. The debates are tomorrow. How much do you care? How much do you care about the Trump versus Biden debates and the election in general?
I mean, as George Carlin says, when you're born in this world, you're given a ticket to the circus. And when you're born in the United States, you get a front row seat. So considering that we're sitting in the front row and it is a gigantic circus and these people are clowns, I'll probably watch because it's kind of my job, I guess, to watch and know what's going on. But I'm not, I don't care really.
What about voting? Do you vote? Do you care about having a vote?
I don't vote. I voted for Ron Paul last time. I like Ron Paul.
If you were stuck in an elevator with someone, and let's say you get stuck on a floor and you got like an hour, but how would you convince someone to not vote or that their vote doesn't matter? Like, how would you do that?
I mean, I liked it when George Carlin would go on Politically Incorrect and argue with people. And there's this one guy he went on there with, and the guy said, "You don't vote, George. You're in no position to complain." And George says, "Oh, you've got that backwards, buddy. I'm not the one enabling these people. You're the one voting for them. You're the one telling them that this is fine, that everything is great and everything." He says, I'm not participating in this. He says, "I have no stake in the outcome." Sort of that thing. I just, look, I'm no Trump fan, and I'm obviously not a Biden fan.
Show sponsor, both of them.
But I will say there is no universe in which you can convince me Joe Biden actually got 81 million votes. That like people went to the polls and voted for him. I will never be convinced of that. So something happened, whatever that was, right? That made it so that he was installed. I don't think that he should have been. I think Donald Trump won the election. But again, it doesn't really matter because it's back and forth and it's political theater. I'll tell you, I will say this though. I am deeply against the democratic George Soros reimagining of like how we're going to run these big cities, their idea of like democratic governance. I am deeply opposed to that. They are out of their minds. Their ideas are super dumb and extremely dangerous and a catastrophe to the cities that embrace them, right? They just watch. I've done tons of episodes on like San Francisco's doom loop and like what these guys have done. And it's all governmental policies, right? So I see that and I think, I don't know if this country can handle 4 more years of Biden pushing this retardation on everybody because this is really a catastrophe. So you ask how I feel about the elections. I would prefer if Trump won, but but that's like saying I prefer the outcome of that. That I prefer that Bugs Bunny doesn't get shot by Elmer Fudd at the end of the cartoon as well. You know what I mean?
Analogy. Do you see any value in adding an option to the ballot that just says no confidence or none of the above?
So there's a great. I have to say this because it's such a funny movie that goes completely under the radar. But there's an '80s movie called Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor and John Candy in it. Now, it's been 40 years, so I am going to spoil the ending for those that don't. So the point, Richard Pryor is a minor league baseball player, and his rich white uncle that he didn't know existed, who's a multi-bazillionaire, died and gave him $30 million. But the stipulation in the will, and it's like a video recorded will, is that he has to spend all $30 million in 30 days, and he has to have nothing to show for it. He can't have any tangible possessions. He can't buy a house. He can't give it away. Can't give the money away. He has to actually spend it. And the point of this movie was to teach this guy to not be so worried about, so caught up in money and what it can buy you. Make him hate spending money. And he starts off by buying lunches and dinners for everybody around him, but he can't blow through this much money this fast. Halfway through the movie, he figures out that the best way to take a lot of money and spend it and have zero to show for it is to run for political office. And he runs under a candidacy of none of the above. He didn't want to win. He wanted to blow the money, and he ran on a candidacy of none of the above. And I thought, that's genius. We need that. We need none of the above. I don't know what happens, but that needs to be an option. Which pedophile do you want to vote for? Neither. I'm not participating in this.
I think if nothing else, the net positive, if we had a legitimate none of the above option, it would just be to show that your vote is counting and that maybe like a sanity check that you see 80% of the people say none of the above, and then the winner gets to share the 20% vote.
Whatever. Yeah. Just to show that they're like, oh boy, our polling is bad. Our none of the above candidate was all automatically kicking the shit out of the Libertarian Party, but that's no surprise. Anybody can do that. Sorry to pile on Chase Oliver and this band of lunatics.
Show sponsor.
Over there.
Shout out Chase. Chase.org 2024. We're going all the way.
Yeah, we are. Oh my God. So I'll tell you what. Whoever wins the election, the loser is going to be us, the general public. That I am 100% certain of. That outcome I will bet on. But I would take Trump if for no other reason than he's just the most entertaining, and I don't have like all this negative energy towards him, but I know people that do. And and their response to Donald Trump becoming president makes me want him to be president. You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with policies, personality. It's just the fact that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That sort of mentality, right? It's like when you see the libtards that are like, you know that they're going to be screaming at the sky, like in all the memes and everything, and freaking out. You go, oh, I'd like more of that. Yeah, I want the guy that'll do
that screamo energy, and use it to like run your Cybertruck or something. It would be wild.
We've discovered a new form of energy.
You run Donald Trump
in, flowing up from liberal tears, right? From Trump winning the election again. No, but like seriously, like if you ask me why, like who would I pick? That's about the only justification I need to lean towards him, is that he'll finish off the job and break these people. Do you
want to watch an hour of Bugs Bunny or an hour of Elmer Fudd? Right, it's kind of what it comes down to, I think. And
yep, it's a cartoon, and I mean, we have. I laugh and joke about it all because you have to have sort of you have to sort of appreciate how preposterous this whole thing has gotten. But the real seriousness and truth of the matter is that we are in a situation where, like, as a nation, we're really very unstable financially. It's just feels like it's just about to go. And I know that that's going to hurt a lot of people. And that is not something I'm looking forward to. But I don't think that's going to, I don't think it's going to matter which president is in there, which person is in there as the president. I don't think that's going to stop anything. And so as I look forward, it's like I'm kind of goofing on all this stuff and laughing about the presidential elections, and because you should, right? Because you should mock these people because they're ridiculous. But at the same time, like, there's going to be real world implications of the decisions that they make, and they're going to impact a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to be hurt because of it. And I'm not looking forward to that. That part isn't making me laugh. And I don't know which guy is worse for that. I think they're both. If
you want to make an omelet, you got to kill a few million people. That's how it works.
Right. Just Madeleine Albright in there making omelets.
So I got your temperature check on a bunch of different sort of serious political, but I've got a few more that I want to go into. I've got a quick little 10-second interlude, and then I'm going to run right into it.
Hey, conspiracy buffs, I double dare you to take some PCP, the Paranormal Conspiracy Probe. On your marks, get set, and go!
All right, the whole point of this is just to get a temperature check on a wide variety of different topics. So the rules is basically, I'm going to mention a topic, and you're just going to give me a 1 to 10 rating on how much credibility you give that particular topic. So as an example, if I said Bigfoot, 1 to 10, where would you rate Bigfoot on, like, whether or not he exists or has ever existed?
Oh, gotcha.
So let's start with that.
10 being for sure.
10 being that not only do you believe it, but you'll sit me down and you'll convince me of it. 1 being like, don't mention that. That's silly. That's a psyop.
Okay.
So where would Bigfoot be on that scale from 1 to 10 for you?
Too many people have seen Bigfoot for me to think that it's not a real thing just because I haven't seen it. I'm going to put that at a 9.
What about flat Earth?
Ooh. Did spend some time with Dave Weiss from Flat Earth. They make some good points. I'm going to give that about a 5.
What about the statement that a human being has landed on the moon in the last 100 years?
That's a 1.
What about celebrity clones?
That's probably like a 7.
How about we've seen more than one Joe Biden on TV over the last year?
10.
How about ghosts?
10.
Demons?
Probably. I don't know. 7.
Angels?
7.
Fair. Usually those balance out.
Yeah, put them together because if there's one, there's the other. I've done a ton of psychedelics, so I know there's something out there. I don't want to be dismissive of like the heaven and hell and the good and the, I mean, I think there's something out there. I just don't know how to define it really.
Well, on the note of psychedelics, how on a scale of 1 to 10, this might be an abstract one, but a scale of 1 to 10, when you do psychedelics, you're seeing another objective reality, not something that's an amalgamation of neurons firing, but you're actually getting a glimpse at an objective thing that other people can see.
It depends. The smokable DMT, your eyes are closed. It's hard. Your eyeballs are closed, but it feels like your eyes in your head are open up in a gigantic dome, and you can see everything. You can it's geometric patterns. So I wouldn't be able to ever describe it to somebody really very well with my eyes closed. I have had an instance where I will say that I will tell this story just because you're asking about if other people can see what I see. I was in Mexico last year at an Acapulco, and I ran into my buddy Johnny Dollar, who's a crypto artist, and he was my DMT partner when the first time I did it in 2019 at the conference, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And I ran into him down there, and the types that we did with the shaman during the ceremonies in 2019 and 2020 were 5-MeO powdered form DMT that's blown up your nose, right? It's like a 30-40 minute trip, kind of mild, very visual, very auditory. They put blindfolds on you. I was crying during mine. But he knew that I wanted to try the smokable kind. The Joe Rogan, Machine Elves, all that shit. And so he said, I saw him down there last year, and he said, I've got a smokable DMT vape pen. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that existed. He's like, it does. And I've got it. And I know you want to have this experience. So why don't we just say Friday night, final night, sunset, meet me here at Max Egan's bar? Oh, okay. All right. So I go and meet him, and we hang out and chat, wait for the sun to go down. We go down to the beach, and not where like the water can get us. And it's dark, and there's nobody on the beach. And, he says, he kind of explains it to me, and I feel comfortable with him because I've done DMT with him he's the only guy I've ever done it with. And this is going to be like our 3rd time together doing this. And so I feel comfortable with him. And since he has experience with this, he's going to lead me through it. Right. So he says, all right, do this first time. I did five different sessions throughout the course of the night, just so you know. So the first time it was like, take 2 hits, close your eyes, lay back, that sort of thing. Next time, take 3 hits, close your eyes, lay back. 4 hits, you know, yeah. So it sort of built and built and built until the final one, where he said, okay, this time what I want you to do is I want you to hit this as many times as you can hit it, as hard as you can hit it while you're still functioning. I'll take it out of your hand when you're done. And he said, and I don't want you to lay back, and I don't want you to keep your eyes closed. He says, I want you to sit up. I want you to stay where you are, seated up, like kind of sitting on your butt on the sand, and keep your eyes open. And I want you to tell me what you see. And I was like, challenge accepted, right? Let's fucking go. So I hit that thing until I couldn't hit it anymore. And I was sitting there staring. And so the moon is out, just to set the scene. The moon is out. It's dark, but you can kind of see a little bit because the moon is out. The ocean is in front of me, maybe 30 yards in front. I can see it. I can see the waves white capping and sort of like when they crash. And I'm watching this and I'm watching this. And then everything just freezes. And the waves stop doing anything. They stop moving. They just freeze. And out of the sand, very gently, I see a very fine light blue, light green grid. Like if you had that grid, like when you were in school, you had the grid paper, you know, perfect square. It just sort of appeared kind of out of the sand, all the way down the beach, through the waves, up, all the way to as far back on the horizon as I could see, all the way up to the top of the dome, right? Felt like big dome above us. And I saw the simulation.
So like the holodeck you're describing from Star Trek.
I saw what looked like the inner workings of a CAD design program where you were going to overlay different layers on top of it, but you hadn't. You just had that kind of greenish grid. And it was already dark, so it was almost like a black with, you know, neon green grid. And I just tried to take it all in because you know it's going to be gone in like 5 minutes. So you're sort of like gathering information as much as you can, trying to see like how far back can I see? Could I see clouds in front of it? I could. Yes. Okay. So it was behind. It was like behind the clouds were in front of it. So there had to have been, you know, so I'm thinking about all this stuff. I'm trying to remember it. Don't forget this. Don't forget how it smells. Oh my God, the taste of it. It tastes very specific. I can taste this, you know, and then it just kind of went away. And so I look over at Johnny and I said, I saw the grid. And he said, I knew you would. That's why I wanted you to keep your eyes open. So he said, with this batch, you see the grid. I was like, okay. And so that was my experience with that. So when we start talking about like where my level of what my score is on stuff like this, it's like, I am open to quite a bit, and I don't pretend to have it all figured out. And especially when it comes to the cryptid stuff, I really like it. I don't know much about it. I don't know enough to say this is true, that's bullshit, whatever. I'm just interested in it. And I think that there's room for this. And I've seen enough weird stuff, and I've had enough of these experiences to know that there's a world beyond our eyes, and that if you think that what you see and hear is the only thing that is out there that can be seen or heard, you're severely limiting yourself. There's a lot going on that we can't perceive. And so I'm open to the possibility that we don't know anything. I'm open to the possibility that there's interdimensional type things. And when the grid pops out of nowhere, I mean, yes, I did smoke DMT, but when it pops out of nowhere and you were just sitting there and it wasn't there and now it's there, you start to think, well, what else is there that I don't know is there? So it leads you down a path towards like, oh, I get it. I know nothing. I don't know anything. Like I think I do. Maybe I do, but I don't know. I don't even know if we're in a enclosed system. I don't even know if we're part of a simulation after that thing. I go, and I remember saying to Johnny, I go, how am I supposed to go back to like my normal life after that? He goes, yeah, no kidding, huh?
They're still collecting taxes. Don't worry. You'll snap back into it.
Man. So
what do you think about making that mandatory in a very serious sense? And I don't mean like, giving it to kids, but let's say in order to graduate high school or before you can get a PhD or before you can hold public office.
Terrence McKenna says that. Terrence McKenna said that he said before you're allowed to hold political office, you should have to do ayahuasca 100 times.
100. What do you? Let's just say it's once or 5 times. What do you think about that in a very serious sense?
I'll tell you this. If a candidate was running and I knew that candidate was somebody that had done it, I would be more inclined to think that they were telling me the truth.
So if Joe Biden comes up on the debate stage and he's like,
Joe Biden smokes DMT on the debate stage tomorrow night, I'll vote for him. I'm making that proclamation right now.
I'll throw that one out there too. They won't hear this until after the debate's over, but just in case.
You guys keep score. You just let me know who I need to vote for. If he hits that pipe out there, if Johnny Dollar takes him a vape pen out onto that stage and he goes to Pluto, I will absolutely vote for him, 100%. Because I think that people in the serious side, I do think that it helps you with the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes if you've done psychedelics. And I think that politicians don't do that. They don't put themselves in other people's shoes. They obviously they don't. I mean, their policies are set up in a way that it's not reflective of taking care of the general public. It's very different. So I think that if you were somebody that had done a ton of psychedelics, you just couldn't act like that. I found that most of the people that I know that are in like the alternative media, like the actual one, have done psychedelics. It's part of why they're intellectually curious about the topics that they talk about. There's a connection there. Not everybody every time, of course, but a lot of them.
Have you ever been introduced to Salvia divinorum?
I've heard of it, but I've never done it. No.
What state are you in?
Colorado.
It might be legal. I think it's legal in like 4 or 5 states. Anyway, I don't advocate for that. Wink, 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 wink. I would never suggest anyone ever do that. Wink, wink, wink. Especially if it's not legal in your state. Wink, wink.
Well, this last year, I must tell you, at Anarchapulco, I had a chance to meet up with Shaman Bearheart, who looks like he could be playing defensive line for the Bears. He's a big dude, and I've met him the year before, and he's like a cool, like super chilled out shaman guy. And he had a offsite. He was at this holistic center, and they were taking people back and forth from the conference over to where he was, and I did a bufo ceremony with him. And that is DMT wrapped in love. That is one that was like very similar to DMT, but it was like a super like all the hippie people would know what I'm talking about, like heart chakra type trip. And dude, it was wild.
Did you just lick the toad directly?
we did not lick it directly. He had these flakes of so it's toad secretion, which is toxic. It's not technically toad venom, but it's a secretion that's toxic. I mean, it just makes you think, like, I always, whenever I think about stuff like that, like, who is the guy that got this wrong? You know what I mean? Like, who are all those people that had to do it the wrong way before they
Or he picked like the poison dart.
Don't lick it. Don't lick the toad. No, that killed the last guy. Like, you have to just squeeze it, right? They squeeze it and then they scrape it and then they dry it and then they flake it up and then we smoked it. And it is wild. Has very similar DMT properties, but it was less, I don't know. It was very like you felt very optimistic afterwards. You felt very good from it. Like not like high, but like euphoric, like DMT wrapped in love. Somebody said that to me. I was like, oh yeah, that's 100% what it was.
Well, I'd like to pull this back into the whole like distrust of government and the octopus of control. And it seems like there's very real evidence that indicates the psychedelic movement, if not completely designed by alphabet agencies in the government, but it was very much given a nice little oomph, right? Like Robert Garden-Wasson's the one that went and brought magic mushrooms and he gives it the Henry Luce of Skull and Bones and Time Life. And that gets perpetuated. And you've got like the Ashbury and MK Ultra and the LS, like all of these different things. Does any of that sour psychedelics in your mind and say like, oh, it might be a psyop?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I personally have never really enjoyed LSD. And part of it is because it's chemical, synthetic chemicals, and it just felt different. I don't know how to describe it. If I had a preference, and of course I'm an adult and I do, and I can make my choice, I would choose the natural stuff. And if they've co-opted mushrooms with government agents, good luck. You know what I mean? Like, good luck with that. Because mushrooms are amazing. And they're and that's the gateway right there. Everybody, for everybody I know, the gateway is mushrooms. And now they have them in chocolate bars. Like I was at I won't give the name, but I was at a place speaking recently, and there's a guy in there that had mushroom chocolate bars for sale. You can get them.
They keep way longer. There's also gummies. A lot of people make mushroom gummies now, which are fun. The only problem is that once you turn it into a snack kind of food, if you found yourself in possession of said snack food, you can forget that you're not just snacking on chocolates or gummies and that it's actual medication, which can turn into a whole thing. But
the first time I ever ate a Colorado-based weed brownie, I didn't read the instructions like a moron. I just ate the whole thing.
I say like take like a sixth of it or like a quarter of it, and then you
sure. Eat it. And I was like, I took the whole thing, and then I was like, oh shit. After I'd eaten it, then I was like, this is probably. I told my wife that's what it was. We were getting married, and I said,
this was on your wedding day.
This was the Thursday before the wedding, which was Saturday. And the reason why I know is because it was Thursday night football was just getting ready to start. I ate the whole brownie. My father-in-law came over and it was like, hey, mind if I watched a game with you? I was like, oh, and I watched that entire football game and nothing happened. And I was like, dude, this brownie must be defective. You know what I mean? Like the thing that everybody who eats too many edibles says. But I had already eaten it like hours earlier. And I remember the game ended and he's like, well, I'm out of here. And he like left. I was like, all right, cool. I thank God I didn't embarrass myself. 2 minutes after he was out, everything kicked in and I went into like cartoon land. I was like, holy shit. I remember crawling to the bed. I was so fucked up. I had to have 1 foot on the floor. I was like, I hate too many of that entire thing. My wife was like, I can't believe you ate the entire thing, you dumbass. You were only supposed to eat like a quarter of it. I'm like, oh, I love brownies. I love weed. What do you want from me?
When you have one of those experiences, and we'll wrap it up with this. When you have one of these experiences, psychedelic, or you eat a weed brownie or 4 or 5, do you get paranoid and start thinking about the government's after me, or do you get into like a positive zone where it's like, here's how I can improve things? Or
no, I don't. I have taken an approach to this whole the information that I research and write about and talk about is really heavy duty. Like you get into some dark stuff, right? And as a defense mechanism, I have found, and also as sort of a method of explaining the information in a way that's a little easier to digest, I have found that the best way to deal with it is to use humor and to understand that, there's nothing funny about depopulation, obviously. But you find sort of the ironies and oh my God, you have to laugh at how insane this is and this sort of stuff. And I try to come at this from a place of like, let's laugh at the insanity of it all, right? To keep myself sane. So that's how I approach all of, whether it's my writing. I've had people say like, your books are funny. Like, I mean, considering you're talking about like the worst shit in the world, they're pretty funny. I'm like, well, my hypocrisy is funny. I had to put 400 footnotes in the book. Hypocrisy is funny, not because of me. It's funny because I was putting all these stories in there. I was showing all of this like blatant hypocrisy and this insanity. But I had so many footnotes because I had to show where the story was real, because otherwise people would just assume I was making it up to try to be funny. But what I was showing was like, no, like I couldn't be this funny. This is reality, man. Like the Oregon people getting arrested for collecting rainwater. You know what I mean? Like when you find that story in or whatever it is, things like that, like these preposterous stories that you find, and then you can point to it and people are like, oh shit, like that's real? Oh no. So my approach to this whole thing is like, let's laugh at the insanity of it all. Doesn't mean not to take it seriously, of course, right? We're talking about important things, so you got to sort of be paying attention, but like, don't let it like get you down either.
I don't
think we work well if we're like, oh, defeated, like, oh, like you're gonna let Donald Rumsfeld beat you? Really? Fuck that. You got to fight back. You know what I mean? You got to be defiant, at the very least, just be like, I'm not complying with you guys. I'm not doing what you want me to do, So, that's kind of where I am right now. Like, let's laugh at it all, like with the election coming up, like get your popcorn. Either way, there's going to be something stupid going on and something crazy that we're going to talk about.
I think we're on the same wavelength as that, because that's the whole inspiration that I started Paranoid American and making comic books and everything, was that premise of like, here's these really serious topics, eugenics, for example. How do you make that funny? How do you turn that into like a thing that is a joke? It's not the easiest thing in the world, but I feel like it's one of the more important things, because it takes the edge off. It makes you, and I'll give you an example of how to make eugenics funny. Is when I was researching Alexander Graham Bell, his wife was deaf. Him and her founded a school for deaf children. And by everything on paper, you'd be like, oh, wow, he was like an advocate for people that were deaf. He promoted sign language and all this. But behind the scenes, him and his wife were very pro-eugenics, and his example was that he didn't want any more deaf people in the world. And it's crazy. That's like his wife was deaf, so there's this inherent humor that's like he disliked his wife so much that he was just like, let's get rid of all the deaf people.
No more people like my wife. I cannot take it. We can't. This planet cannot handle any more people like my wife. Yeah. That's. Yeah.
So,
It's fun. I mean, you find the humor, and you're like, the people that are advocating for like the extermination of the human population look like Harari, and you go, really? You look like a rat. You look like somebody who should be exterminated, and you're going to lecture the rest of us beautiful people, sweet bastards, about that we need to go. We're taking up too much space on your planet. Well, get out of here, you little elf.
well, if I'm taking only two things away from our talk, it's smoke DMT and make fun of eugenics. Does that sound pretty accurate?
Yeah. That might be even be the title of this one.
Let's see how far that goes on YouTube.
If it goes on YouTube, then it will definitely get demonetized.
Let's see. We'll give it a test. Maybe we could republish it. We'll change the name to like buy Hyundai and drink Coca-Cola or something.
Yeah. I think your audience will understand what that means as a title. That means there's some shit in here that you're not allowed to hear about. So we had to change the name.
Charlie, thanks for coming on. Long overdue. I can only hope that I can even get to 3 digits. I think we're somewhere around the 60s or something, maybe going into the 70s. But you definitely are sort of like the lighthouse in a way of, trying to get as good as Charlie Robinson, take things the same way with like a nice sense of humor and just killing it, man. Like you're introducing David Icke, you're talking in front of Anarchapulco, you're writing books left and right. You're just pumping these things out like you're not even a human. Do you have a Neuralink? Can you at least tell us if you have a Neuralink or not?
I will not take the Neuralink. That is one of my many lines in the sand. I'm not taking any brain chips from these people. No, thank you. I'm good. I'm content to be just a regular non-trans person.
Do you have any books or projects or anything that you want to shout out for people to check out?
Well, actually, The Octopus of Global Control, my first book, is now available as an audiobook. It's out on Audible and Amazon and iTunes and Spotify and everywhere you can get audiobooks. So that
Did you narrate
was long overdue because that was 7 years in the making. I just didn't do it.
Is it your voice?
It's out. No, it's Graham from Grimerica.
Oh, outstanding. Yeah, he reads a lot of like the old Manly Palmer Hall books and stuff on YouTube. I love those.
Yep. So, and which was cool because they were one of the first shows I did to promote that book back in 2018. I remember going on Grimerica, and I was traveling from Denver to Vegas, and I did the interview from the Denver airport, like and of course the Denver airport of all airports to do it from, it's the weirdest place around. And I had like a travel microphone. I had it plugged in, and I was in a stairwell in the Denver airport doing the Grimerica show to promote the Octopus book. And then years later, the Grimerica guys wound up doing the voice for it. I thought it just seemed appropriate to me that it happened that way.
Now, were you in the stairwell, or did you push the square and compass on the Freemason plaque and go into the underground tunnel?
They're doing a lot of renovation work there. And they have these barriers that are set up to, because there's construction going on behind there. But they're really nice. They're well done. And it's in the main concourse, the main lot, right where everyone from Denver comes into, goes through security, and then goes out to the different gates from there. And in that space, they have put on these really nice wooden barriers that are blocking the construction. They have silk screened these like advertising, almost like ads, and one of them is like a lizard and it says, and it's an actual like chameleon lizard. And it says, "Pardon our dust while we expand. We are currently in the process of A, expanding the underground lizard people chambers. B, building out the underground New World Order bunker. C, about to bring you some great restaurants and stores in this area." And so you like walk by and you're like, trolling us. They know. They're just having fun with us. They're putting lizards.
It's really an
it has like a crown. It had a crown. Like, so so anyway, that's my they did take the paintings down in the Denver airport of the
the Nazi soldier shoving the knife up some girl's butt, and then there's like a cycle of life and death. And I read that was one of the first conspiracy theories that I got big into in like the late 90s. And it was like they're going to paint over it, and they did paint over it a few times, and they kind of touched up certain little areas of it. But it's
gone,
man.
It's gone now. But the gargoyle coming out of the suitcase in the baggage claim up top in the corner is still there.
And Lucifer still reigns supreme, right?
Out there, yeah, yeah. Out in the blue horse. It's like a 4-story horse. It's like a blue, huge ass, bright blue horse statue right at the front of the Denver airport with glowing red eyes, like demonic red glowing eyes. You're like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And by the way, it killed the guy that guy that made it. It fell on him, killed him during the construction.
I mean, you kind of have to if you're going to have a Lucifer. There needs to be a blood sacrifice.
You have to. They're probably watch. We have to.
That's when the eye started to light up.
Somebody for the good of this New World Order. Oh, and by the way, there's a plaque that says New World Order Airport. With a Freemason, all the Freemasonic signs. You could walk right. I could show you exactly where it is. That's still there.
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit NASAcomic.com.
NASAcomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on. That's why we're singing this song. I'm NASAcomic.com. Go visit NASAcomic.com. Go visit NASAcomic.com. Yeah, go visit NASAcomic.com. Oh, NASAcomic.com. CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on. That's why we're singing this song. I'm NASAcomic.com. Go visit NASAcomic.com. Go visit NASAcomic.com. Yeah, go visit NASAcomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions. This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
Spread the word with propaganda packs, all for just $40 shipped at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
These huge all-weather slaps will last in public for years to come. Remind citizens that birds are not real. Self-immolation is an option, and might make you magnetic. Do your part and get a propaganda pack today from paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
What are you waiting for? Go to paranoidamerican.com right now and get a paranoid propaganda pack.
stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
We're all American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Matters not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.